and welcome to anyone who's watching. My name is Antonina Tosiek, and this year I have a pleasure to interview authors whose books have been translated into Polish in the series of the new literary canon in Biuro Literackie. Now we're gonna talk about Hiromi's Ito book Zabić Kanoko, translated by Anna Zalewska from Japanese. So this is kind of a different series. This is the literary canon from Asia. We're gonna talk about the books and the book itself, but also about the craft of being in the language and between the languages and creating some literary words in the intersection of identities and of cultures. So, hello Hiromi,
Hi.
Nice to meet you. So I'd like to start with a few lightning round questions, a little bit like a Proust questionnaire. Is that okay with you?
Okay.
Okay.
Anything.
Anything. So the first one, to write means to. What does the literary practice mean to you?
To write?
To write means to. What does it mean to you to write?
To live.
To live?
Yeah, I mean, I've been writing, all my life. So, always thinking about writing.
Okay.
So writing is expression, but in the meantime, more than expression, I think.
Yeah.
So just to live, that's it.
Oh, that's very
Yeah. But then only in Japanese language.
That's what I wanted to ask you
Yeah,
later
I think so.
on.
I was living in California for 20 more years, but then I never thought about writing in English. Of course, my English is not good, but in the meantime, I don't know. It's more and more getting into Japanese language. I don't like Japanese culture, but I not only love, but on something like I need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like an air to breathe,
Or air,
to write,
water,
to breathe.
or yeah.
Okay. Do you think that a poem have any responsibilities? What does a poem is allowed to, and what is it not allowed to do? Poem.
Not like other genre in the literature.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about poem first.
So you are now talking about the only poem.
Yeah.
Dealing with the Japanese language, I think in any other countries as well, in other language, poet has to know the boundary of the language has, and then we are pushing the boundary to that kind of limit, other people wouldn't even imagine. And then we break the boundary and go beyond. That's our task, fate, or something like that.
So this is something you should aim to do, to break the boundary.
Yeah. And then, like a novel people, how do you call it, novelists, they are different from the language side. So we are much more interested in that language.
Yeah. And also in breaking and like going through the barrier much more. Yeah, okay, thank you. I write when I feel. What provokes or stimulates your creativity the most?
I write when I feel. Which
kind of emotions provokes you to writing? What stimulates,
I don't know.
The anger?
I've been always kind of writing. Now I'm using my iPhone. Yeah. Just kind of talking. Yeah. So I came here from Berlin by bus, and I was kind of. So I don't know anything I see, and I feel strange, or I feel something, and then that moment, I'm surrounded by so many things, you see the things, I see things, it's the same thing, around us, but I choose something I feel strange or
drawn to, connected to.
Yeah, kind of, some connection to myself. And then you choose different one. So this is kind of already my poem. And then I choose language for that. And then I brush it up, and that's all.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. The space, place, or a room where I write best is?
My home. My house, my computer, my room.
Is the space important for you? Like, do you feel connected to a certain situation?
Not really, actually, but I like staying home. stay. I don't like this kind of, traveling around, what I do, but then I always prefer staying home.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's so interesting that you record your work, let's say, first of all. That's,
Yeah.
Do you do it often, or is it just like something what
Traveling?
kind of... No, the recordings.
Recording, this one?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, now, now I get, iPhone. Before that, I was so many thinking, my thinking is more than I write. So I've been...
mind is faster.
Yeah, trying to, sometimes I record it and then I actually, listen, record, and then, write down, but then very slow. So now it is wonderful. Yeah, technology helps me. Yeah.
Okay. Some people say it kills the creativity and kills the art per se, but...
Maybe I got killed.
I hope... Oh, but that's the last question.
Yeah.
I will stop writing if...
Yeah.
What has to happen for you?
Writing?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe not. Nothing happens.
Nothing happens?
Yeah.
You're gonna do it as long as you live and breathe?
I did it so far, and I'm almost 70. So maybe another 20, it's easy. Yeah.
Okay. So I wanted to ask you about like living and being between languages and existing between languages, because you are immersed in Japanese and in English, but you write only in English. This your first translation into Polish, but you've been translated into many other languages before. I wanted to ask you, when you look at your writing, what does and when the language offers you something unique and opens like a different opportunity, and when you think it kind of limit a certain expressions, when in what occasion the Japanese is limiting and on the other hand freeing?
I really don't know. If I were born as an American, or I would be very happy to write in English. I was
Have you
not.
ever tried?
No, once.
Okay.
And then I wrote it, and then I asked my daughter, she was 10 or something, could you check it? And then she checked all the preposition, how to say, the, or something like that. And she checked everything, and then, okay, that's it.
And it killed that.
Yeah. And then, started living in California. Then it was so weird because I was free first time because nobody knew me. I was behind, I was kind of hiding behind my partner, and then he had already community. I joined it, and everybody was like writers, artists, that kind of community, and nobody knew me, and that made me so free. Okay, nobody knows me, almost transparent, and then. Years later, I'm getting kind of frustrated. Nobody knew me. So weird. So then, Jeffrey Angles published my first, translation. I had German already, but then, there are English-speaking people, and the English book came out, and then they started to know me. And then, I found where I stand up, kind of place. I stay. But first of all, I felt I was almost like choked because there are no Japanese kind of, Japanese is a kind of, if it's visible, it's kind of losing from my hand. So I actually trying to hold it, and then, I liked or not, it doesn't matter, because I really wanted to keep it. So I decided not read in English anymore.
Okay.
And I'm very shy, so I didn't want to talk with people in English. And with family it's okay, but then without family, I try not to talk, try not to do anything, and then just keep in Japanese, and then reading only Japanese. I made it very, very, clearly, and then so. Getting more kind of, stable. But also, meantime, it happened when I was living in Poland, when I was younger, 1 year. I was reading Japanese classics because my partner was in a student as a student in Warsaw University. So I went there so often, and then it was books, Japanese classics, and nobody reading. It's all Japanese books, and I took it and I was reading it, and so reading in outside of Japan, reading Japanese books, it really came to me, became my body, and more. So that's how, I don't know, I'm answering correct answer or not. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about the word in Japanese that you hate the most.
Oh, I hate everything.
You hate everything?
It's the reason I was, in California was, I think there's no space for me to live. Yeah, of course I love it, but not only love and hate it, like a women's,
Right.
stuff, anything. And still people are talking in totally different way. People sit down in a different way than I do. Yeah. And so I'm very weird person in Japan, but then I'm a poet, so it's okay. Yeah. But it's kind of difficult.
But what about your connection to the language? Do you have a part of Japanese language that is making you kind of frustrated? Do you have? Do you sense some kind of limitations within the language?
Limitation in Japanese?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
What kind of
so
limitation
it's free.
you think? Yeah, but what kind of limitation you feel?
I mean, in the case of the cultural layers of behavior and of the expectations and all of the social situation, is the language kind of going through it and making you and writing in general more emancipated, let's say?
If I would be a foreigner, I mean, how do you say, non-Japanese speaker, and then learn it after I grow up, then I would feel it. But then, from the first beginning, this is my language, that's all my language. So I have to deal with that. So, there are so many things, like reading in classical books, there are so many, how do you call it, respect forms.
Yeah.
So you got to find where you are in the society and how to talk, and that kind of stuff, could be really annoying if I were a non-Japanese speaker. But, I have to deal with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't have to, actually, because you're a Japanese speaker.
That's what I was given.
Yeah. The blessing.
Yeah.
Your poems kind of feel like being carried away by a rushing river for me.
What does it mean? Carried away? I don't understand.
Being drowned in the river, going with the flow of the river. And it's very speedy, and the reader is thrown with the speed, and sometimes there's not that much room to breathe, actually, because they are so expressive and so lively and so vivid. Yeah. So I wanted to ask you.
Thank you.
That was my my experience with the book. So I wanted to ask you, what does the discipline from the punchline comes from? Where does it come from? Where do you? When and where do you sense it's time to deliver the last line? Put the momentum of the river to a halt?
That's really difficult to say. I don't know. I just, I don't know. I mean, it's one thing, it's interesting is, not this one. Later on, I'm now writing mostly prose, but then call them as my poetry. Yeah. So much more prose in a way. But then after I moved to California, using English, and using English means you can actually remember. When I use English, English idioms, the saying anything, the sentence, oh yeah, I heard this sentence from some was talking about in that kind of situation, and I remember that. So in my head, always so many things when I first heard the language, the words. Yeah. So my words, my language is not came from here, but came from there, mixed with that. And then of course Japanese as well. But when I was little, I got so many Japanese from my parents or my around, but I don't remember. So I feel like I've been having this language from first beginning, but then it's not true. That kind of feeling, it's very strong. Yeah. So my voice is not only my voice. You use the metaphor of river. So it's river. Then river never stopped. But then also river is not only one water.
Yeah.
The water came from the ground, from mountains, or rain, and put together. And that kind of feeling I feel. It's a really good metaphor, river is.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I'm glad. I'm glad. But do you sometimes discipline yourself in your writing? Because those poems are so talkative.
Yeah.
They are so expressive.
Yeah.
Do you kind of feel the need to stop them? Like, is the river and the water sometimes stronger than yourself?
Yeah. I don't.
Okay. You let them be. You let them go.
Poetry is maybe not that kind of stuff. And then, compared with the other language poetry, I think Japanese poetry tend to be kind of, like that. Not really, because we have a shorter, version of the poetry.
Yeah.
It's called haiku and tanka, which is always limited. And we are kind of counter to them. We are kind of called ourselves the contemporary poetry, which is much rawer, like this. So we tend to have all over, but not really like prose, not short story, not novel, that kind of,
Yeah, of course.
So, but then among them, I'm more type. So this is my style.
Okay. I was like reading your poems. I was so impressed by how vividly you engage senses, like each sense individually.
Yeah.
For me, reading this book was primarily about sound and scent. And what is the predominant sense in your writing? It's because on the one hand, there's a lot of observation, observation of the reality,
Right.
and the reality is in motion, so it's also connected with the touch. But on the other hand, the smell and the sound is so strong.
Yeah.
So does any form of like the sensory perception is stronger in your writing than the other?
Sound, yeah.
Sound.
I think so. And then why? That's not, I said, the voice is not only my voice, but then comes from outside, Same thing, I think. I'm always interested in anonymous voices. And like, Japanese classical, literature. And of course, the first beginning of Japanese classics, they're all anonymous. And then, the reason I went to California first, I was interested in Native Americans oral tradition, and then I wanted to know more. So there was a poet who studied, researched about that. So I went to his place to think, to talk, to know about that. So I think what I'm talking. So anonymous. What I'm talking
about the sounds.
Sounds. So sound. So this is really important for me. Also, reading out loud.
Yeah.
Gives me more, aware about sound. I guess.
Do you read others people's works out loud as well?
Yeah.
No,
it's gross. I can't do that. No, only one or two poets.
Okay.
Because I worked with their works.
Yeah.
So then kind of, but then mostly no.
It's so interesting that your work is strongly based on your autobiographical and your own expressions and experiences. But on the other hand, you talked about how you are driven and your language is driven from outside world. So what is the tension between like immersing yourself into the world and bringing the world into
my biological stuff and then what?
Yeah, and what is what is more important for you? Like bringing yourself out or bringing the outside into yourself? The invitation of the world. Do you want to share yourself more, or do you want to immerse yourself into the outside world
Actually,
more?
both, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't tell which is more important. Yeah. Talking about only, like writing only about, based on my own experience and on my biology, my own kind of stuff, my family or something. I don't know why, but then I have to, that's the easiest way for me to get the kind of materials. I wrote about, Zabich Kanoko, but the Kanoko is still alive. Yeah. So kind of fiction, everything is fiction, but based on the true story.
Yeah.
It's some movies like that, so something like that.
And what your family thinks about you writing about them?
I don't know, Kanoko doesn't care.
Okay.
Yeah, and other people, my daughters, my partner couldn't read any Japanese. So my daughters, one can't read Japanese. Yeah. The other one doesn't read my stuff because she's too sensitive. She doesn't want to read anything. And Kanoko doesn't care. She's also Kanoko and I sometimes do performance together. Yeah. So no problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your book was published in a series of Asian literature and a part of the new literary canon as well in the Biuro Literackie. So I wanted to ask you, what does canon mean to you? Canon, like literary canon in general. Do you kind of want to fight it, or do you want to like the canon, like the collection? Do you want to fight them, or do you want to embrace them? And also, I'm interested about the position of Japanese literature in the like literary world scene in general, because for years there was a debate. Is the category of the word literature even real? Should we even use it if like all of us are from the different places, languages, cultures and identities? What does the canon, do you want to fight the canon or do you want to embrace the canon?
Okay, the first question, these poems I wrote 40 years ago. Yeah. That could be a canon, to attach something. I don't know. I mean, too late. And then I'm now living in somewhere here, and I wrote that. At that time, I was angry. I was, I was having so many, stuff to deal with, and then also, I was 28 when I wrote this poem, and other things. I don't know which one is in it, but then until maybe 35, so it could be a long time ago. In that time, I was certainly, like killing Kanoko, certainly I was kind of against the Japanese culture and something. I was standing out and trying to say something. But now, 40 years, things changed. So I don't know. But maybe, still kind of working. Yeah. I don't know, I hope so.
Of course.
But then the readers have to remember they are reading my work 40 years ago.
Yeah, of course. And what's that? How does it feel to be back in the
feeling like I'm taking like a time trip? Yeah. And time machine, Poland here 40 years old, something like that.
How does Poland changed?
Yeah, but then this morning, Shinya Daniel, it's the same thing, there. Fleb and maso, and then how do you call it? Pacharki, stir fried. Piecharki.
Pieczarki.
Yeah. And then, we had that 40 years ago. So it's the same thing. But then this is so different. Others, so different. That was under the social, how do you say, system.
System, yeah.
And right after the solidarity was kind of breaking, that kind of time. So it's so different. Yeah, the smell different. So maybe there was a detergent that changed. I hope. I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. What would you like to leave your reader with? After reading this book, what would you want to remain in the reader?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know anything. It's just kind of.
They can be free.
Yeah. But I didn't answer your second question. What was it? World literature?
Yeah, and the place of the Japanese literature in the wider literary scene.
Well, I don't know. I mean, still, technically, talking Japanese people, so many Japanese people are thinking only about the Japanese culture, and then we don't speak English so much. We don't read English. We don't read, not only English, but then it's kind of very closed all the time. But people think so we are open, but for me, it's not. Very closed. So I don't know. But some people are thinking about much more open and writing to the world literature. Successful, not successful, I don't know. So I don't know. But then once you be part of that, if there is a term of the world literature, yeah, of course,
And you are a part of the wider and of the more local.
Yes, but then difficult things, like a translation. Of course, I'm writing kind of very Japanese stuff now, and then Japanese language, Japanese culture, Japanese classicals. I'm using this kind of stuff, and then if it gets translated, so how people could understand.
Yeah.
So translation make it kind of flatter, then much easier to understand, but then lacking of some Japaneseness. So
It's
difficult.
race of the identity. Of
Exactly, it's very difficult, isn't it? But sometimes, like my translator translate like a Japanese food into English, or, and much German translator is much more strict, wants to express as Japanese it is. And my English translator, a little bit more kind of softer. But even though he wants to translate Japanese food into English so precisely, and I said, so nobody understand, Japanese food. Nobody, ever ate that kind of food. So how about, Japanese veggie? Nobody knows that.
Yeah.
And then how about the green beans? And then everybody can understand. He said, no! And then German translator said, no! So I was the only one who to break it.
Okay.
But if so, then there will miss some Japaneseness.
Yeah, and especially in this book, the concept of womanhood and being a woman in the Japanese culture.
But that's not really only Japanese,
Yeah, of course.
isn't it?
Yeah, of course. And that's why I wanted to ask you about your experience with working with a woman translator. Was it different for you?
Women translator and the men's.
Anna Zalewska
I
about-
don't know, because my English one is men.
Yeah.
And German, Norwegian, Chinese, they're all women.
Ah, okay.
I can't read these languages, so I don't know the differences.
Do you take any pleasure from the sound? Let's go back to the sound. Have you listened to any all of those Polish poems, Japanese poems in Polish?
In Polish? Oh, I never read it. This is my first time to see it. So
touch it.
yeah.
So you're gonna hear it first time today.
Yeah, must be. So yeah, weird. Yeah, I don't know. That's a really good question. The women and the men. English translator and me, we've been knowing each other for a long time. So we've been really, really close, almost like like my brother, something like that. We was talking, always talking. So he knows my English. So maybe not here, but in the other book, the word glass on the riverbank. It's a kind of long poem, and he used some of the English is actually my
Your own
yeah,
phrases, yeah.
my English is kind of like a little kid's English sometimes, and Japanese English, but he kind of used it. And then when I read it, at that time I was already in California, and I actually, I want sometimes I thought, oh, maybe if I could write in English, it could be better for me to express the situation I was there, but I couldn't. So I was writing in Japanese. So, oh, this is something I wanted to write. That's what I felt. So, in that kind of sense, men, women, doesn't matter.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But the experience of motherhood and the womanhood in general, like
I don't know.
I identify
Well,
with this part of your writing a lot. So I'm
Motherhood.
wondering,
But in my translators, other translators, German, Norwegian, they don't have any daughters. So kind of weirdness, strangeness towards daughters, which is same thing either from men or from women, and maybe. I hope so. Yeah.
yeah. Hiromi Ito, the author of Zabić Kanoko, translated by Anna Zalewska from Japanese. Thank you, Hiromi.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.